today, the iconic Hero Karizma makes a comeback. Rohit rides this motorcycle on Delhi streets to find out whether it lives up to its legendary status. We also check out the second generation Lexus LM 350h. Hello and welcome to Overdrive. I am Sunny Dutt. For the past 2 months, the biggest buzz in the motorcycle space has been the re-entry of the legendary Karizma motorcycle. Now, this is recently launched in the country at an introductory price of 1.72 lakh rupees. The motorcycle is being called the Karizma XMR 210, and we are here to find out just how different it is from the legendary iconic motorcycle that we had seen back in the 2000s.
The legend returns. That has been the buzzword for Hero MotoCorp for the last 2 months, stirring up a lot of memories of the original Karizma and then leading up to the launch of this, the 4th generation Karizma, now known as the XMR. The original Karizma was a tall boy, but it never looked lanky. If anything, it looked imposing. This motorcycle looks a little too sleek, almost as sleek as the Extreme 200, especially for a sports tourer. I would have liked it to have a more bulky or a more muscular stance, which unfortunately it doesn't get. What it gets, however, is a very sharp, sporty stance, something that will feel just at home even on a racetrack. Despite the compact dimensions though, the XMR tips the scales at a little over 160 kilos, which is a bit heavier than the older Karizmas. However, out on the road, out on the move, it doesn't feel heavy at all. It's very nimble, very easy to maneuver. Of course, that stance is still a little bit on that sport touring side, which means that despite the clip-ons, despite that absolutely sharp nose, it still isn't a very committed riding posture. It's still a pretty relaxed riding posture. So long distance comfort shouldn't be a problem. Long distance comfort of the seat, I don't know yet because I've not really taken it that far. However, for the city, it feels quite nice. It's a narrow seat. So despite that 810mm seat height, which is again on par with the original Karizma, it doesn't feel too tall. You can easily get 2 feet flat on the ground. So managing this motorcycle in tight parking spaces, on the move, and in terms of the overall comfort as well, I think it's pretty good. Think of the XMR to be a smaller alternative to the Apache RR310 then. Similar riding posture, more performance than the R15 of course, and well, a similar shade of red as well. The yellow looks better in my opinion though. And while the paint quality is good, there are a few inconsistent panel gaps and you're going to have a hard time keeping the dark visor devoid of any swirl marks. Another USP for the motorcycle is an adjustable visor height. So all you need to do is press this button right here and then you just pull this up. So this is the level of adjustability that you get. Now honestly, I don't think it's going to make much of a difference. Even at its tallest position, it's probably just going to reduce a little bit of buffeting, but that's about it. It's not really going to give you a lot of weather protection. So from a touring standpoint, I'm not sure how much this is going to help. The headlight of the XMR features 2 projector lamps which come on automatically when the surroundings go dark. That is a big plus. The overall assembly though looks like it came straight out of the Hero Zoom. The tail light is mounted high and looks sporty and appears like a high-resolution version of the Passion Pro's tail light. But with such design elements, the XMR tries to establish a familial connection with the rest of the Hero lineup. It is Hero's best attempt yet at a full-fed bike, and it does have plenty of street presence that sets it apart from its rivals. This one gets a steel trellis frame. It's got a nice rigid feel to it. It feels a lot more stable when you're attacking corners. Even high-speed lane changes feel quite nice on this motorcycle. The stability overall is quite good. Complementing that is a broad set of tires as well. You get a 140 at the rear and these are 17 inches of course. Hero's definitely improved quite a bit in those last 20 years, but there's still quite a bit of creaking coming off these panels. Out of the box, the XMR takes on bends quite well, but for sportier riding, I would definitely swap those MRF zappers for stickier rubber. And the 17-inch wheel diameter opens up a lot of options. The overall ride quality is actually quite good. It's a bit on the firmer side, like I said, not as soft as the original Karizma, but at the same time, that has its advantages in the way the motorcycle handles around bends. Now, the previous Karizma, we remember, the front end feel was always lacking. It would have a lot of nosedive under braking. If you went a little too hot into the turn, there would be a lot of movement from the chassis, from the overall motorcycle. All of that is nicely ironed out with this bike. The low-speed ride over poor road conditions feels a bit unsettling. but the suspension feels more supple as the speeds rise. There is no traction control like some of its rivals, but even on the dusty and some of the wet roads in Delhi, I never felt the need for it.
You get dual channel ABS on the motorcycle, which is good news. However, the brake lever feel, it's a bit spongy.
The engine is lower in capacity than the older Karizmas, but it's technically superior with its 4-valve VOHC specification. It also has liquid cooling, which works just as intended in some of the traffic jams of Delhi that I was stuck in after our shoot was over. The exposed frame doesn't heat up too much either, and the overall ventilation for the fairing is well designed.
Now, in terms of the power and torque output, Hero claims that it is the best in class. Take that with a pinch of salt. The acceleration feels crisp. It feels quick. The mid-range delivery is really good. You can be in third and fourth gear for most of your traffic commutes, and you'll still be able to pull quick overtakes when you need to. Even at triple-digit speeds, the torque delivery is actually quite good. So if you are looking for a good sports touring package, this might still deliver. It's just the size that keeps going against it.
The throttle response is crisp, but I would have liked a lighter clutch effort. A 6-speed gearbox with a slip and assist clutch is definitely a plus though. To sum it up though, maybe for someone like me who has a rich love story with the original Karizma, the new one feels like a completely different breed of motorcycle. But most people who will walk into the Hero dealerships right now may not have any preconceived expectations from the Karizma nameplate. They would most likely draw comparisons with the likes of the Yamaha R15 and the Gixxer 250SF instead. And from that perspective, the new Karizma XMR is definitely a winner.
The segment in which the Hero Karizma XMR has launched in finds itself in a very fierce competition against rivals such as the KTM RC200, the Yamaha R15 V4, the Suzuki Gixxer SF250 and also the Bajaj Pulsar RC200. Now we will get to calling all the manufacturers to get the motorcycles so that we can get a comparison story for you pretty soon. On that note, let's take a very quick break here on the show, but coming up on the other side, we'll get you a very detailed review of the Lexus LM 350h. Welcome back, you're watching Overdrive. Lexus will soon be launching the second generation LM in the country, and Tuin got a chance to spend an entire day with this luxurious MPV, and he was totally blown away with its plush and tech-filled cabin. It clearly turns out to be an MPV which could easily be called the most expensive MPV in the country.
Now, being that high-profile leader or that captain of industry that you are, you know the value of time better than most of us. And you also know that your luxury SUV and luxury limousine bring out the right statements, but they really don't let you make the best of the free time that you have while commuting. What you need is a place where you can completely unwind or completely get some work done, which is where an MPV with its added practicality comes in. Love it or hate it, the LM's audacious front will have people talking. The massive spindle grille is the center of attention here, but its more open look with the segmented hexagonal pattern does soften its presence quite a bit. The decidedly cab-forward construction barely leaves the bonnet. This is also when you realize that the LM is enormous, longer than even the full-size LX SUV, and only slightly shorter and narrower. The bodywork has that chiseled look that you see in new Lexuses, but done discreetly to cover the sheer mass. The 19-inch wheels are reasonably flashy with the intricate details, but are somewhat dwarfed by the mass of the LM. The rear is probably the simplest. It's a flat bootlet to maximize space, but the wrapped effect and layered detailing to the full-width lighting again stops this from being too jarring. The Lexus LM, when launched in India, will come in two seating options, a 4-seater and a 7-seater. Be no mistake that the 7-seater is a pared back version or something like that. It's still pretty much one of the most luxurious MPVs you've ever seen. Let's start with the seats. You have a folding cup holder like this. These armrests, they're all heated, and everything that you feel is soft leather. So that's how comfortable this is. It's a small armrest, but it's good for your tab or maybe a small laptop. And you control most of these functions in the car through this. Looks like a smartphone. This screen controls pretty much everything. Your audio functions, you can choose your outputs, you can choose between the front and rear speakers from the Mark Levinson audio system. You can choose your climate controls here, your fan speed, the flow, as well as the seat heating and cooling. Of course, there's a rear climate concierge function as well. You can adjust the seat from here, the massaging function as well. Now with all the luxury that you already seen this 7-seater model give you in the second row, there's still another row. Getting in is fairly easy. You press this and the seat slides right forward, and then this pushes up the seat back. Yes, it doesn't tumble fold fully, but a lot of MPVs don't anymore. And you have this quite easy step to get in. Remember, the Indian spec version will also get that retractable footboard, which this pre-production model doesn't have. So yeah, getting in is fairly easy, and you step in and you realize that even the third row wouldn't be out of place in, say, a regular MPV or SUV's second row. What you get with the seat in a middling position, this second row, there's still an immense amount of space, as you can see. The floor is fully flat, the bench is at a fairly high height, so this is still a perfectly comfortable space for you to spend time in. And then of course you have lights here, this compartment, vents, buttons for the blinds here so that you control these blinds, a charging port, more space for knickknacks, bottle holders, and even a reclining function, which you can recline to a pretty useful angle, as you can see. So even in the third row, the Lexus LM is perfectly good for you for as long a journey as you want to do. Now the LM still happens to be an MPV as luxurious as it may be, but of course boot space is still very important in terms of how practical this MPV will be. So what you see is you open the boot by pressing this button on the side so that you aren't in the way of the power folding function. Now you have 110 litres with the two seats up, and this can go up to nearly 1200 litres, but it takes a bit of fiddling. These seats, they are a bit heavy and slightly cumbersome. You can push these out like this to free up quite a bit of space, and then if you want even more space, you can bring these up like this. It folds quite easily. It's somewhat like how it used to be in the Innova Krista, but much more refined and with a sliding function. Now if you thought the 7-seater was plush, this is what the 4-seater gives you. There's this massive, absolutely gigantic 48-inch widescreen TV in front of you. And now this is in the single view version. You can have a split view where each passenger can see what they want to see. And you have even more leather here. For example, the armrests are wider still, and you have a deep door bin here with a lot of charging port, HDMI cables, and a cooled storage space in the middle. The window controls are here as well, like in that car. They're on the roof in that, but here, because you have a bit more space to play with, they're here in the middle. And here's another nice party trick which will have you and the occupants occupied for quite a while. Press this and that partition blanks out. And then again, these tablets function in more or less the same way. And just like in the 7-seater version, you have these opening roof shades. And of course, there's another table here which is slightly larger, and your cup holder is over here as well. Now probably the biggest reason to pick this over the 7-seater version is the fact that you can recline the seat all the way back. And I mean all the way back. This is pretty much a bed on wheels, and first class travel is probably how this feels. So you can lay completely flat like how I am right now. This all black cabin option makes for a cozy sense inside, but you can also choose a brighter beige color. In either versions, you have large windows, especially the rear quarter glass. So a sense of the immense space inside the LM with its 3000 mm wheelbase is always present. In either guise, the LM gets a full suite of ADAS tech, as well as a useful set of 360-degree cameras.
As you can see, the Lexus LM 350h is a perfect cabin to be chauffeured around in. But after this break, we'll tell you about the ride quality of this MPV. Stay with us, you're watching Overdrive. Welcome back, you're watching Overdrive. The India spec Lexus LM model will come in the 350h and an all-wheel drive guise. We have taken this MPV for a short drive to just find out how practical an MPV it is.
Now we've got a very short spin in the Lexus LM right around the Toyota factory here near Bangalore, and The first thing that you notice, or your chauffeur will notice, is the view out that you have. Now you have a massive expanse of dashboard in front of you. The engine pretty much sits underneath this because of this cab forward design, which is obviously meant for practicality. But what this does is free up this really expansive glass area in front of you, these massive quarter glasses, let you actually place this car, which is quite large, easily enough. Yes, you can't see exactly what's in front of you, which can be a bother sometimes, but you do get cameras for that, so that's really not a problem. And then of course you have quite large mirrors which help, again, place your car easily. Of course, with this huge cabin behind you, and in the 4-seater version, that partition, you might not be able to see all that well behind, which is why there's that driving view camera. You've seen it in many other luxury cars, and that's here too now. It may be all about the passengers with the Lexus LM, but those in the first row won't have much reason to feel shortchanged either. The cabin is done up to the same high standard here too. It's again richly detailed, the dash seemingly perched on a wood plinth. The same textured wood, leather and suede are used here, with the addition of open-pore walnut wood on the steering wheel. The front seats too have been thoughtfully designed to be more supportive while driving, says Lexus. We found them to be quite comfortable and with a good deal of adjustment, including a powered function for the steering wheel. They have heating and cooling functions too. The interfaces are shared with other Lexus models, so you have a 14-inch central touchscreen that will control most of the functions, including the climate control and drive modes. The India spec car will also get a head-up display as well as a 12.3-inch instrument cluster. It loses the concentric look of earlier Lexuses for a simple but legible set of digital dials and easy access to a host of information. Now this hybrid system, it works like how you would expect these Toyota and Lexus hybrid systems to work. It's quite powerful, there's 247 PS, so the LM won't set the world alight, but it's also just about adequate for the kind of use that you'll put this car through. So again, it just starts off quite calmly in electric power, and it'll use it at least in the normal and the eco modes as much as it can. But yes, you get a sport mode which then puts the engine in the forefront, and then specifically for the LM, you also have a rear seat mode. Now, we haven't been able to sit in the back seat and see how that works, but again, it seems to just soften up the drivetrain, soften up the dampers and so on to make it more comfortable for rear passengers. But what you do notice is the refinement. Now, we've known these powertrains to be quite noisy before, but in this case, as you can hear right now, the engine is quite silent. It feels quite far away from you, and there is that drone that we noticed, but it's distant. And considering you won't be going too fast in this car, that CVT effect, that head nod effect that we sometimes don't like, that delay, that, or at least in these really low speed environments, it's pretty well controlled. With the Lexus LM, the focus on comfort runs quite a bit deeper. The MPV is based on the monocoque TNGA K architecture, which it shares with the new Wildfire and other Lexus and Toyota SUVs. But numerous changes have been made specific to this model. The front suspension uses materials and tech to lower unsprung mass and improve ride comfort, while the stability control functions also use the brakes to reduce roll and pitch. Expectedly, there's acoustic glass and masses of sound deadening material, while the engine too has been tuned to be less noisy. Now, in keeping with this car being quite manageable, you also realize that the steering, it feels fairly direct as it can be in a car this large, and the same can be said of the suspension tuning. Now in terms of ride, we can't tell you much, but at least on these very well paved roads, flat roads, you don't notice any harshness coming through. Yes, there is some body movements, like some vertical movements, but they aren't uncomfortable. Everything has a very lush, damped feeling to it, which generally goes with the soothing atmosphere that you find in the back seat. Similarly, there is roll, as you can expect from something this large and this boxy. And of course, if you take a corner too quickly, from what we saw, it does tend to run wide a little bit, but in most cases, this is not how you will drive this car, and keep things calm, keep things how this car is supposed to be driven. And again, it just makes for a calming, soothing environment from behind the wheel, with that sense of plushness that you feel from within the cabin. Expect the Lexus LM to be priced upwards of rupees 2 crores when it launches in India later this year. This puts it above other MPVs and right in the ballpark of top-tier luxury SUVs. In that sense, the Lexus LM offers a very different proposition. It may not have the tough image, but there's gravity with its imposing face and size. But if your primary need from your car is for it to be a space that cocoons you and comforts you in between your tight schedule, there are few cars that will match the LM.
So that's it then from us on this week's edition of Overdrive. But remember, you can stay in touch with the team through Facebook, Twitter as well as YouTube, and you can follow our latest updates on Instagram. We'll see you next week. Until then, drive and ride safe.